Today I want to talk to you about being satisfied. And part of satisfaction comes from the awareness of knowing about your relationship with God, your relationship with others, and the relationship that you instill with others in the community. But before I take a look at that, let's just look at the passages that are provided for you today. The book of Joel was written roughly around 400 BCE. Joel would have been considered a prophet in the temple. And what has happened is simply this. Bad conditions have overcome the land. There's been drought. There's been wild locusts. It's been extremely dry and harsh. And the people of Israel feel abandoned. And the prophet at one point says, yes, this is true. But now look what has happened. God has brought the rains once again. The land is flowing like milk and honey. The crops are rich and full. The locusts are kept down very low, and the harvest is worth participating in. God has forgiven us and has told us that in the end of times, He will always have His Spirit with us and with all His people, regardless of whether you're a slave or a freeman, whether you're a son or a daughter, God's Spirit will always be with you. He will never forsake you. He will always save you. But you have to be the one that reaches out. You have to be willing to reach out for that companionship of God that can instill courage and tenacity in your times of great ordeal. And it is through this relationship that you will be provided strength and salvation. Now in 2 Timothy, we have to understand that this letter was not written by Paul. Most scholars are of that opinion today. When I was in seminary, I was always told that Paul wrote both the first letter to Timothy and the second letter, but apparently not. And the reason for that is because it's talking about the way the church should be and operate in a more formal context than what Paul would have been used to in his time. Having said that, the person who is writing this passage is telling us this. He is being imprisoned. He's paying the ultimate sacrifice. And the word that is used is libation. Wine, water, oil that is poured on a sacrificial animal, both in the Gentile history as well as in the Jewish history. It would be anointed by special libations. And this servant sees himself as receiving a libation. He too is being washed away and being persecuted, with none of his faithful being with him as he faces the charges that are against him for holding the faith that he does. But he has a resounding sense of hope. God is with him, God will vindicate him, and God will give him the reward that he so justly deserves. And finally, in a story that you're all familiar with, I don't want to go into great detail except to simply say this. The second prayer is a man who knows he's not perfect, knows that he has not lived up to God's calling, but still desires to have a relationship with the divine, where the first person has all the confidence in the world about the relationship, sees his performance as being ingratiating to the great power of the divine, but who is smug, self-assured, self-righteous. And Jesus says, the one who comes humbly before God is the one that deserves God's greatest compassion and attention. All right, being satisfied. One of the first things I want to share with you today is that God desires to have fellowship with all of us, and He wants to give us His Spirit. He doesn't want us to walk alone in this life. He doesn't want us to struggle by ourselves. He wants us to know that He genuinely has imparted His Spirit to all people. And that Spirit is deeply at work in your heart, in your sense of conscience, in the direction that you choose for this life. And whether you know it or not, it's not based on tradition in which you were told what's right from wrong. It's the internal gut that says, I have to follow a voice of my own breath. And that voice of my own breath is the direction of my destiny. And I can't live my life as other people would have it. I must live it in the context for today as it has been given to me from the moment of my birth. Because, you see, I have received God's Spirit, His nephesh in Hebrew, personality, will, and spirit can be the translation. I have received that which is of my own nature, of my own being, and it will play a role along with other people who will play their roles, hopefully in a complementary fashion that will give evidence to the reality that we are not alone in this world, that indeed God cares for all of us. And even those who do not go to church or who do not believe in a proposition about God, even they have his nephesh. They just don't know it. They have decided to take it upon themselves as their destiny, their fulfillment. They've decided psychologically to understand themselves to be wise and gracious, but they have not been able to realize that they are a part of the one who made them and has ushered them forward to bear their witness to the reality not only that there is a God, but that there is good in this world. And that good has its ability to triumph over everything that is evil. If only but we would persist and believe, and as Joel says so rightly, call on the name of the Lord. My life has not been perfect. I've had lots of mistakes. I have journeyed through some very difficult valleys, which I have shared with you upon my coming to you as a minister of your congregation here. And I want you to know that I too cry out for God every day. But I also know that my life has been laid before me as a path I cannot reject. It is a destiny that I need to fulfill, and it's not just a function of my personality or my upbringing or what my parents taught me in terms of right and wrong. It has everything to do with that which drives me to be what I desire to be for the greater goodness of this world. It is to know that God's breath, his nephesh, has put me here for whatever ultimate purpose it is. And I also know it's not just ministry in the church. It's much more than that. And it's always unfolding every day, leading me in different directions, helping me to meet different people in different circumstances, and opening a wide range of doors upon which maybe I can leave a lasting effect. Number 2, despite misfortune and abandonment, God will never leave us alone. I can only say this to those of you who have been in a dark corner for a long time. You probably have been depressed. You probably have felt that God did not care about you. I suspect you've also been angry at God because your life has not worked out as it should. But for those of you who have gone through the worst you could possibly imagine and are here in this church worshiping with us, it says more than you can possibly know. It sends us all a signal that no matter how far abandoned we are, there is a spirit that will attend unto us and give us a strength that is beyond our knowing and our ability. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to like the road you're on. It doesn't necessarily mean that you accept with grace the treasures and problems of life. It's not that. It's the courage of your convictions to be able to ride through the worst storm, knowing that somehow you have not been abandoned, that you have not become an island unto yourself, that you have had not only friends and prayers, but that you have also had the open awareness that the Spirit of God pushes you to your healing and your wholeness. And no matter how dark it has become, and no matter how flagrant the storms of the sea may be, you have decided to set sail on a path to your own salvation. And it is there that over time, when you look through a rearview mirror, you see where God has been. And you realize it hasn't been about you and your power and your tenacious will and your sense of fortitude and your intellect and creativity that brought you through. It was the very energy of God's Spirit cradling you when you cried, brushing away your tear when you were sad, whispering in your ear a word of encouragement and hope. The other day I went to Jim Beliveau's wife's funeral. I didn't participate, I just went as a support because I used to sit on the Camp Whitney board with him. And both he and I were instrumental in getting some cabins established at the camp. Now here's someone I've worked with who has no children, who's lost his wife at 58 with cancer. And I saw him as he tried to sing hymns. I saw him as he tried to have an apportionment of his life that stood firm and solid. And at one point, he was also helping serve food. When I came to him and I said, Jim, take that tray of sandwiches and put it down there. And I opened up my arms, and he leaned in and he wept for the first time. He wept endlessly. And all I could say was, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I love you, bud. Give me a call when this is over. We'll have coffee and we'll talk. But when he leaned on me and he let loose, I could sense a powerful presence. And it's not just love. I found the divine, holding up one who questions the divine, who has been faithful to his church, to the camp, for years. And now he's faced with the grave question, why me? And my last point. You want to know God? Walk humbly. Love mercy. What is mercy? Mercy is compassion. Just having compassion for people in general. The other day, a member of my church called me and left me a message wishing me my happy 63rd birthday. And I telephoned back and said, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to think of me. And then I said to her, I'm thinking right now about Jim and the loss of his wife. And she said, you know, life could be a lot worse. We're so fortunate not to have those problems right now. And I said, no, that's true. Things can always be a lot worse. But my point is, I could be where Jim is. It could happen to me at any time. Life is precarious. One day to the next, no one knows what's going to happen or what's going to unfold in our lives. And all the more reason to have humility. And when you pray, be short and sweet and honest. That you're upset, you're angry, and that you're filled with great emotion. God will accept that far greater than if you say to him, look, I give a tenth of all I give. I attend church regularly. I know the scriptures off by heart. He doesn't care. What he cares for is a broken and contrite heart, a heart of humility. Not that you have to be a doormat and let people walk all over you, but have the ability to know that life is very tenuous, and at any moment it could slip and fall and not work to your advantage, because one day it won't. It will work against you. You will feel its sting and its tremendous pain. And you too will ask, why me? But remember, when you were upright and strong, God was always with you. Why would he not also be with you when you are decrepit and weak, vulnerable and alone and isolated? So as you go from here today to be satisfied, know that God wants fellowship with you in and through his Spirit. No matter what happens, he'll never leave you alone. Walk humbly and always love mercy. Amen.